Hello there. Today I'm going to be reading Advocacy Big and Lovely Serena Williams from November 2020 Vogue magazine. Power and Glory. History maker, record breaker, businesswoman, mother. Serena Williams is in full swing. Olivia Singer meets her in LA. Photographs by Zoe Gertner. Styling by Julia Sarr. It's a balmy March evening in Los Angeles, and high in the Hollywood Hills, Serena Williams is curled up on a velvet chair in the basement of her family home, hair wrapped in pink Hello Kitty sliders dangling from her feet. She has just put her 3-year-old daughter, Olympia, to bed. There is a sweetly written post-it on the front door imploring any late-night delivery drivers not to ring the bell and risk waking her, and the remnant paraphernalia from a busy afternoon is scattered around the living room. Unboxed Amazon packages, half-dressed dolls, a tumbling game of Connect 4 and 2 small dogs, Lorelei and Chip wandering among it all. In such a setting, and ignoring the fact that Williams's loungewear is paired with a staggeringly sparkly diamond ring, and that imposing security protects the compound, there is something disarmingly ordinary about sitting down with one of the world's sporting superstars during a rare off-duty moment. She's tired. She and Olympia flew in from Florida earlier in the afternoon, and her daughter refused to nap on the plane. And I am acutely aware that this might not be how she wants to spend her Friday night while her husband, Alexis, sits upstairs watching television. But she is charmingly hospitable nonetheless, and once she relaxes into conversation, my somewhat awestruck anxiety dissipates, and it feels curiously like having a night in with a girlfriend. See, I don't bite, she laughs. I'm really low-key. Low-key isn't the first phrase that springs to mind when you hear the name Serena Williams. She is commonly understood to be not only one of history's foremost athletes, but also a fearless force for change, consistently and vocally contesting the sexism and racism that she has faced her entire career. Tennis is a small play in the whole scheme of things, she says. It was my way of getting recognition, to put out such a big message that wouldn't have been put out otherwise. While our first conversation takes place in what feels like another universe, before coronavirus was declared a global pandemic, before the death of George Floyd, before people of all races woke up more fully to the injustices faced by African Americans and black people everywhere, it comes to resonate with devastating urgency in the year that unfolds. Williams is one of the last people I see before I end up sequestered in my London flat, and our catch-up calls throughout lockdown are coloured by our respective experiences. For the first time in her life, Serena chooses to take a break from training for the first time. In mine, I try to start. But as the months progress, our discussions evolve. People are locked down. People have COVID. There is more anger and more time to reflect. And then you throw in that this man was killed publicity. Everyone was forced to look and think, she says. George Floyd's death was horrifying in the way that millions watching the killing of an unarmed black man should always be. For the record, notes Williams, I've never watched a single one of those videos because I can't. It's demoralising and it's dehumanising. It's my life. It's something that could truly happen to someone close to me. But it was not exceptional. It was one one event in a ceaseless global stream of police brutality that often goes unreported, and that speaks to the systematic racism that has plagued Serena's country since, she points out, the transatlantic slave trade began centuries ago. Now, we as black people have a voice, and technology has been a huge part of that. She says, we see things that have been hidden for years, the things that we as people have to go through. This has been happening for years. People just couldn't pull out their phones and video it before. Then she recalls, at the end of May, I had so many people who were white writing to me saying, I'm sorry for everything you've had to go through. I think for a minute they started not to understand, but I don't think you can understand, but they started to see. I was like, well, you didn't see any of this before. I've been talking about this my whole career. It's been one thing after another. Williams has faced a shocking barrage of racism in the decades that she has been playing professional tennis, from her successes, which have seen her drug tested with far more regularity than her peers, while her celebratory dance was condemned as glamorising gang culture by those who termed it a crip walk to her defeats, where her impassionate rebuttals have been derided as those of an angry black woman. She has been paid consistently less than her male or white female counterparts, while being held to a different standard, so much so that the innumerous bad calls made against her by umpires contributed to the implementation of video replay by the United States Tennis Association. Underpaid, undervalued, she says, but I've never been a person that's been like, I want to be a different colour, or I want my skin tone to be lighter. I like who I am, I like how I look, and I love representing the beautiful dark women out there. For me it's perfect, I wouldn't want it any other way. The life that Williams now lives certainly has the veneer of perfection. Beside her remarkable roster of awards, 4 Olympic golds, 23 Grand Slam singles, she operates a fashion label, an explicitly exclusive line for all body shapes, and a venture capital firm dedicated to lifting up unheard voices, and has earned an estimated $93 million in career prize money alone. She married Ohanian, the multimillionaire co-founder of tech Reddit, in a ceremony she describes as a fairy tale. Their first dance was to a portion of Beauty and the Beast, and her engagement ring cost a rumoured $2 million. Ohanian made headlines after he demonstrated an exceptional commitment to allyship when, in the wake of Floyd's death, he stepped down as a board member of Reddit, imploring his colleagues to replace him with a black candidate to make a better world for Olympia. He gave his first interview about the decision via his wife's Instagram and pledged any future stock dividends to serve the black community, chiefly to curb racial hate. That's estimated to reach up to $50 million. I was happy because I'd never been a fan of Reddit, laughs Williams later, alluding to the intense pockets of racism and sexism that proliferated on a site built on the principle of hosting uncensored free speech. I felt really bad as a wife. I never told him because it's his company, but I was like, thank goodness, now I can tell you how I feel. Since Ohanian's announcement, Reddit has overhauled its policies and banned more than 2,000 communities that harbour hate speech. They've stepped up and now will love them again, says Williams. She described her husband as her biggest supporter, as if to prove the point. He turned up midway through Serena's Vogue cover shoot with a basket of Girl Scout cookies and collected her at the end of the day, as well as the impetus behind their date nights. I don't even like to leave the house, she says, when the baby finally goes to bed at 7:30 p.m. The last thing on earth that I want is to have a dinner reservation for 8:30, but he's really good at it. I love going to the movies, but I'm addicted to popcorn, so we can't go because of my strange addiction. Yet, while Williams would rather binge watch The Big Bang Theory than go out to the red carpet events or glitzy early restaurants, she rolls her eyes and says that as a black woman, people give her either snarky attitude and wonder how she can afford it, or recognise her as Serena Williams. She maintains an illustrious friendship circle that comprises some of the globe's most powerful and influential women: Michelle Obama, Beyonce, the Duchess of Sussex, Sheryl Sandberg, Priyanka Chopra Jonas, the women who kept her going through lockdown, Kim Kardashian West, whose Mimi heavy text messages raised her spirits. Everything I read makes me depressed, she sighs, when we catch up on the phone in June, except for the memes. When I read about the underserved communities, it breaks my heart because once upon a time that was me. The world that Williams grew up in looks entirely different to the one that she inhabits today. The youngest of 5 sisters, who shared 1 bedroom and 2 beds in Compton, the same area of LA, where one of her sisters was tragically killed in gang crossfire in 2003. She learned to play tennis on glass-strewn local courts to a backdrop of bullets. Her father Richard, a security firm owner who decided to turn his 2 youngest daughters into tennis stars after watching a match on TV and hearing one player made $40,000 a week, largely taught himself the game and crafted a 78-page training manual for Serena and her sister Venus from books and tapes, while enlisting local kids to cheer at the sisters as they played. He always said, "You have to learn to play through things because you never know. The crowd might not root for you," she recalls. He was like, "You've got to be able to stay focused," which obviously played a huge role in my life in the beginning of my career, where I was able to block out all of the things. Richard's plan worked. By the time Serena was 9, the Williams sisters had raised enough money from sponsorship deals to move the family to Florida and its more hospitable environment. But reflects Serena, the space she first learned to play in were, despite their issues, more than sufficient. I think perception is different when you're growing up and you're not told you're poor. I was covered so much in love that I didn't notice my house, she says. And the courts, they were courts that built character, strength and endurance, that built Serena. That's what the courts were. What is so extraordinary about Williams is that, given the tenacity that has marked both her career and her dominance on the court, where the power of her serve and forceful strokes characterise her play, it's the grit and the fight, she says. She's incredibly sweet-natured in person. No one ever guesses Serena Williams' favourite thing to wear is tutus since forever, she smiles. Growing up, I loved being the princess. I always wanted to be the princess, and I don't think a lot has changed. She describes herself as the girliest of her sisters, and while she's regularly acknowledged as a force to be reckoned with on the court, some of her hardest hits have been served while dressed with radical femininity. She has worn hot pink leopard print dresses and denim miniskirts, Swarovski-like swooshes, and most famously, a Virgil Abloh designed off-white and Nike tutu for the 2018 US Open, after her all-black catsuit was banned at the French Open earlier that year. I think that sometimes we've gone too far, French Tennis Federation President Bernard said at the time. One must respect the game and the place. I don't want to go into a room and blend in Williams' asserts. The tutu made me feel amazing. I just never wanted to take it off. I felt like I was a kid again, and we were in the yard and I was the princess. For Opala, designing her look for the US Open was a career highlight for me. He continues, Serena has an amazing personal sense of style and grace, and is an icon for the modern black voice that influences culture on the biggest stage in sports and beyond sports. Despite her love of fashion, she hates shopping, describing her reluctance to try on clothes in stores as a hangover from her younger years, when she never found anything to fit. I mean, I got boobs, I got legs, and I got a butt. She laughs. When I was growing up, what was celebrated was different. Venus looked more like was really acceptable. She has incredibly long legs, she's really, really thin. I didn't see people on TV that looked like me, who were thick. There wasn't positive body image, it was a different age. As is the case with most women in the spotlight, irrespective of their field. Williams's physique has been subject to scrutiny, and in a torrent of racially charged remarks has made her muscles characterised as masculine, accusations of steroid abuse, and the president of the Russian Tennis Federation referring to her and her sister as the Williams brothers, describing them as scary to look at. But how amazing that my body has been able to give me the career that I've had, and I'm really thankful for it. I only wish I had been thankful sooner. She says, it's just all comes full circle when I look at my daughter. Observing Olympia grow has been instrumental in Williams' own evolution. She beamingly reflects to Olympia's strong arms, which she loves so much, that they made her reconsider anxieties about her own. She came out looking like a little baby that's been to the gym, she giggles. Her legs are like she just finished 20 quad sets on a machine. Since Olympia was born, the two have never spent a day apart, quite a feat considering the demands of Williams' job, and despite the difficulty she experienced in labour, she nearly died after an emergency C-section and an abdominal hematoma. Within 6 months, and still breastfeeding, she was back playing tennis. What the heck was I thinking, she wonders in retrospect. During the period after giving birth, she struggled with her mental health, concerned that she wasn't good enough to be a mother, that she couldn't be around as much as I would like to be. I don't think I got postpartum depression, I think I got postpartum real, she says. It's the most amazing feeling, but also, especially for someone like me who gets angry, who could win a match and still find something wrong, I'll always find the one mistake that I made. The first time we met, she explained that she'd just rushed through Olympia's bedtime. Her daughter was overtired, driving her crazy, and she didn't want to read her story. I was like, please don't ask, she sighed. And she didn't ask. Then I didn't make it down 2 flights of stairs before I was depressed, like, oh my god, I can't believe I was so mad at her. She had a long day, she's a kid, like, why was I angry? Regardless of the juggling it requires, as she resumes training again for competitions, her schedule compromises 4 workouts a day, mainly undertaken while Olympia sleeps, or during the mornings when she is looked after by her father. Her daughter, she explains, has only galvanised her resolve to continue her own ascent. They tell little boys that they're a future leader or future whatever on the 6-month-old clothes. But for girls, it's Daddy's little princess or you're so cute, she says. The day we spent on set, Olympia was dressed in a t-shirt reading self-made. She raced around the studio, only stopping to gasp, oh mummy, wow, when Serena stepped out dressed in an Amelia Wickstead gown. As well as being a job she loves, tennis has given Williams a global platform to speak out about injustice. In this society, women are not taught or expected to be that future leader or future CEO. The narrative has to change. And Maybe it doesn't get better in time for me, but someone in my position can show women and people of colour that we have a voice, because Lord knows I used mine. I love sticking up for people and supporting women, being the voice that millions of people don't have. Right now, that voice feels more vital than ever. You can't expect something to change overnight. I think that's what a lot of people are expecting, but I don't know if that's the truth, she says. So many people have been murdered or humiliated publicly for centuries. There's always one who changes things. Is George Floyd the one? I don't know. Will it ever happen again? I think so. In recent months, Williams has lent into her faith. She was raised a Jehovah's Witness and has used lockdown to dive back into the Bible, explaining that I'm not putting my faith in any government or anything like that. It's very important for me to understand what the Bible says. But for those of us on a different path, you can do your best to be your best. Some people are doing really great. Other people can try to change their mentality, try to think about how they approach things. Be aware. Make their unconscious biases conscious. Whatever the future holds, says Serena, I've never been like anybody else in my life, and I'm not going to start now. And not only tennis, but the world is a better place for it.